I warned my boyfriend that if he ever grabbed the steering wheel while I was driving again, I'd leave him stranded on the side of the road. A few days ago, he got the chance to test my resolve. He had been invited to a party at his work wife's house, and when I asked to tag along, he flatly declined. His excuse was that my aversion to drinking would spoil the fun and earn me a reputation as the vibe killer among his coworkers. According to him, refusing to let me attend was somehow a favor. Hours later, I got a call from him around 3 a.m. He was completely intoxicated and begging for a ride home. Half asleep and annoyed, I asked where the money I'd given him for a taxi went. Apparently, Tina, his work wife, was hungry, and he had splurged on a feast for her, an extra-large pizza, sides, dessert, and drinks. I was incredulous, but decided that his safety was my priority. So I drove 45 minutes to pick him up. When I arrived, it took 7 attempts to reach him on the phone. Finally, he stumbled into my car, slurring apologies and explaining that he had been helping Tina search for a lost necklace. I rolled my eyes and began driving. Just moments into the ride, he launched into a story about how lit the party was and how funny Tina was, laughing about her impression of me. Infuriated, he reached to grab the steering wheel during his laughter, and I quickly jerked away, pulling over to regain control. I told him outright that I was done with his nonsense. If he touched the steering wheel again, I'd dump him on the roadside. He just laughed, parroting something Tina had said about my big mouth, insisting I'd never actually leave him. I reluctantly drove on, but no sooner had I resumed than he reached for the wheel again, this time swerving and causing the car to skid, smacking it into a curb and crashing into a bush. Panic surged through me as I screamed. Only after the car was wedged in the bush did he let go, laughing hysterically. He dismissed my fears, taunting me that I was no fun. Thankfully, other than a few scratches on the hood, the car was fine, but I was furious. I declared he had to get out. I was driving home alone. He looked at me incredulously but argued I wasn't serious. I remained firm, but he continued to blame me for not getting the joke. Thinking quickly, I devised a plan. I told him I felt a flat tire, sweetly asking him to grab a spare from the trunk to change it. I even sweetened the deal with a promise of a favor. As soon as he exited the car, I hit the gas and drove off, leaving him behind. 30 minutes later at home, I broke down in tears, overwhelmed by the night's events. He reappeared 8 hours later, soaked and muddy, claiming he couldn't remember the previous night. I recounted the events, and as I explained how he had grabbed the steering wheel and caused a crash, I could see his expression shift. He suddenly turned defensive, slamming his hand on the table, insisting it was wrong of me to leave him on the road. I reminded him he endangered both of us, but he refused to take responsibility. He compared me to Tina, saying that she wouldn't have abandoned him, infuriating me further. I pointed out that a real boyfriend wouldn't put his girlfriend at risk or prioritize another woman over her. After he claimed I was being dramatic, I was done arguing. I explained how his laughter during the crash showed he didn't care about my safety. He stormed out, suggesting I reconsider our relationship if I couldn't handle his jokes, leaving me feeling relieved yet questioning the relationship. As the week passed, I struggled with the aftermath. A part of me wanted to forgive him for his drunken behavior and supposed memory loss. But the other part couldn't forget how he mocked me during the chaos, endangering us both, and choosing Tina's comfort over my safety. I ignored his increasingly angry messages, realizing I might need to move on. A week later, I began seeing posts on social media. I spotted a long, exaggerated account from him, portraying me as a cruel villain who left him stranded in the cold. He painted a picture of his suffering, claiming he faced perilous situations while walking home. I was horrified by the comments from strangers condemning me and supporting him. Even Tina chimed in with an avalanche of accusations, portraying me as controlling and unstable. Frustration boiled inside as it became clear that the narrative was skewed. He had omitted details of his drunkenness, the reckless steering wheel incidents, and his reckless spending of my money on her lavish meal. He never mentioned how he mocked me while I was terrified, or the fact that he had also rejected my presence at the party. Desperately, I tried to call him. Each ring went unanswered, and I finally decided to contact Mike, assuming he could urge my boyfriend to edit his post. But Mike's response left me shattered. He hadn't seen my boyfriend in weeks, which contradicted everything he had said. My boyfriend had lied about staying with Mike, and I felt completely betrayed. I called him again, interspersing angry voicemails with concerned inquiries. Each time he had visited to collect his belongings, he must have been heading straight to Tina's, spinning elaborate stories while concealing their reality. The more I thought about it, the clearer the red flags appeared. After days of mounting pressure, I decided to share my perspective publicly. I wrote a detailed account of the events, fully addressing the misrepresented truths he had created. The post described his refusal to let me join him at the party, how he had wasted my money on a lavish meal for Tina, and the chaotic ride home that led to our crash. I highlighted his behavior, including mocking my fears and lying about his whereabouts after we broke up. Responses came pouring in. Many began to call my ex out for manipulation, questioning Tina's involvement. As the tide turned in my favor, the vindication felt liberating. But it all came crashing down when I received news from Mike that my ex and Tina had gotten in a serious car accident while drunk driving, leaving them both in the ICU. I felt detached hearing the news. After all he had put me through, I didn't owe him any sympathy. I had moved on, embracing my newfound independence and choosing to focus on myself, my career, and my well-being. I realized that sometimes making tough decisions leads us to healthier paths. In the end, I won't be visiting them in the hospital or sending flowers. They made their choices just like I made mine. I'm at peace with my decisions, moving forward in life with the help of supportive friends and newfound hobbies. My life now is my own, filled with positivity and growth, and I'm determined not to let the past haunt me anymore.